What up, gamers? I'm Jason.
I'm Julie.
And today on Dice & Dragons, we are going to be reviewing the Transformers deck building game published by Renegade Game Studios and designed by Matt Hyra and Dan Blanchett. I'm going to toss it over to Julie now, who will tell you more about the game itself.
So this game can be played both cooperatively and competitively. It is for 1 to 5 players. It is for ages 14 and above and plays in about 60 to 90 minutes.
So far, all of our plays have been between that 60 to 90 minute mark. Do you think we can play this with younger players, or is 14 really the cutoff?
There's a lot of moving parts and some strategy. You probably could play it with younger, depending on the experience.
And what will you be doing in the game? Because that's my section. So as you can already see, I've placed Ratchet in the Matrix. Well, what he's going to do is be moving around, spending movement points to reveal different cards and things like that. And you'll then be spending, power to buy cards. The cards will have their different purchase costs up here. Now, if they are enemies like Decepticons, you'll be trying to defeat them. And the game will be won or lost, if only in the cooperative mode if you take 5 damage or fail to defeat the 3 Decepticon bosses. In the competitive mode, the game will end once all 3 bosses have been defeated, or if there is no more cards in the deck over here so that you can't draw anything and there's an empty spot in the Matrix. Now in here you've got maneuvers, technology, allies, Autobots, Decepticons, so you can, acquire more Autobots, because in this box you are only Autobots and you'll be fighting the Decepticons. Now there are expansions, but there is one big box expansion that is also another core box, which is called Rising Darkness, which will add the Decepticons to the game and also let you play Autobots versus Decepticons. So I think I've talked enough about the game. What do you think, Julie?
I think it's time to grab a drink.
Yeah, before that, we're going to flip that back over because, you saw it, I saw it. It's okay.
We could always sub it out.
Yeah, we can always do that. So we're going to grab our drink. Grab our fellow Autobot. We're going to transform and roll out.
Or take it to the table and play it one more time.
I had to say the line. When else am I going to get to do it? Now we're going to take a look at the components for the Transformers deck building game. Now we're going to start with the rule book here, and you'll just take a look at what we've got. So you have a list of all the different contents, how you can divide up the cards, the victory point tokens, your tracking tokens for extra energy, as well as your movement. You're going to have the reminder tokens, ongoing and start of turn tokens, 6-player standee basis, the reference cards, which we'll showcase in just a moment. You get an explanation of the objectives, the basics. After that, you got a fairly nice rule book. Now, I haven't actually gotten the game to the table yet. We're taking a look at the components because I'm going to be sleeving this up, so that's where we're doing this right now. But so far, everything seems fairly straightforward. There is some difference between the cooperative and the competitive game, so you have the differences laid out here. And overall, like what I see from the rule book, it's not the best though, but it definitely gets across everything fairly clearly. Then you have some nice references on the back. Now, because they just didn't fit with the layout here, you do have the 5 turn sequence cards, and they are double-sided, so they have a nice reminder as to what's going to be happening when you do end up in a confrontation. So really like the feel of the cards, they're good quality, but I'm going to be sleeving up because I just definitely like to sleeve my deck builders because I want them to last a long time. Now in this big stack of cards right here, these are all your starter cards. Now I've already divided them up into the 5 starting decks. You can see we're going to get +1 to Energon, different things that are going to be happening, Energon abilities when you confront, like this one reserves. If you control 3 or fewer Energon, gain an Energon. So some pretty cool stuff that you can do with these cards to gain the resources that you need. Now you've got the damage cards, which are going to be very different depending on if you're playing cooperatively or if you're playing competitively. Having these means that other characters can potentially assist you and steal some victory points. So as you can see, when battling an adversary, you must resolve 1 assist. End of game, for every 2 damage you control, you will lose victory points. So you really don't want to have damage, but it's not necessarily going to slow you down. Also, I can't believe they used that picture. That's like one of the most heartbreaking things, the death of Optimus Prime. Now, if you think that's a spoiler, I'm sorry. I mean, it happened in a movie almost 40 years ago. So here we've got the Transform and Roll Out cards that are always available. You can always purchase them. That's why they've got this black and gold background. They're the basic cards. So for assist, they add 1 power, which is what you need to defeat enemies, and they let you transform. So pretty cool, straightforward, what you need. The other deck that's going to be out all the time is the Encounter deck, which has negative effects such as when you get ambushed, if there's boss confrontations. They all have their own names, and these are constantly going to be getting cycled as they are drawn. Now, we've got different Autobot heroes. There will be the Decepticons coming. They're coming in the expansion called Rising Darkness. So you've got Iron-Eyed. So he's got a special ability, his Energon abilities, and then they all have their, their alternate mode. And the reason why they call alternate mode is because it's not just a vehicle mode. The Dinobots turn into dinosaurs, and you've got your movement, and then what it tells you that you can do when you transform. So we've got Wheeljack. Do you like the look of his car? Of course, we've got RC, and that's just an awesome picture of RC. And I love the fact that it's a futuristic car. We've got Ratchet, Jazz, and Jazz is a special card. We actually got him because of pre-ordering. We got Bumblebee. Now, not so sure I like Bumblebee being this like Camaro thing, half bug, half Camaro. I think he should have just been the bug. And then, of course, the man himself, Optimus Prime. Really gonna have a hard time not playing as Optimus Prime. He was my favorite character growing up. Now, these cards here are all gonna make up the Matrix. Everything with this gray back. What you see here, we got the Decepticon bosses. We've got some of the cooperative schemes that have come into play. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Sure enough, more in detail when we get to the how to play portion of this video. So you've got different Autobot robot allies that you can get that'll help you out. So Bumblebee, Cliffjumper, Hound, Prowl, Jazz. It's pretty cool stuff. We also got Jazz here. I can't remember if it was him or the one that was the special card, Optimus Prime, Iron-Eyed. Now, I have to take a look at the setup. I don't know if you can have doubles, like your characters that are in play can also be in the Matrix. Here you got the different adversaries, so Rumble, Laserbeak, Ravage, Frenzy, all the cassettes from Soundwave, Vortex, Kickback, Scavenger. So we've got Skywarp, the Decepticons that form Devastator, the Insecticons, Brawl, Bone Crusher, Thundercracker, Bombshell. I'm sure we're going to see quite a few more coming in the Rising Darkness. So those are the enemies, and then when an Autobot will move onto them, they will engage them. So you've got your Autobot standees, which you'll be using to move around the Matrix. I did see a pretty cool upgrade pack that someone bought that was just metal figures to replace the standees. However, it is definitely not being given away, so it is very much on the pricey side, but could be something worth getting into if it's worth picking up if you're going to be playing this game regularly. Don't know if I just showed you Bumblebee twice. Doesn't matter. I think the standees do a good enough job. Not that the game really needs miniatures per se, but there you go. So then you've got different things here like maneuvers such as jump, gain you power but also give you movement points, recon, quick change, let you do stuff like transforming. So maneuvers like this are really going to give you what you need, like some of the stuff even has range so that you can help out other Autobots or, assist them when they don't want to be assisted. Because when you're playing competitively right now without the Decepticons in there, you're having a friendly competition. Now this is different technology that you can use that will give you power, range, things like that. Like, for example, block, you may pay 2 Energon to keep this card in your hand after blocking. So the energy swords, which is pretty badass. I remember those as well. Here we've got just some different locations, sites that'll come into play. So Energon Mines, Autobot base, military base. Sure, we'll see the Decepticon base in the next pack. So we got the relics. So these are really powerful things that you can have to put in your vault to gain victory points, but until then you can use it. So you can gain 1 robot from the Matrix. If none, you gain 2. So the Matrix of Leadership, Polarity Gauntlet, Phase Shifter, Resonance Blaster, Toxin, and then Jetfire, who was a pretty cool character. And sort of fits having him be a relic. Then we've got these cooperative schemes that are going to be coming up. So these are different schemes you have to solve when you're playing the cooperative game. If you're playing competitively, they're not going to be in the deck. And they're a little different the back here, as you can see. So I do not believe they go exactly in the Matrix, or if they do, they still have that nice distinction. Yeah, they do go in the Matrix because they have the card back, but they're definitely a little different. So we have the different allies like Spike, Verity, Sparkplug, Military Airstrike, Cal Pennington, and the Military Transport. I don't remember him at all, but these allies you can get, and I do believe they are immediately in play. They're ongoing. So the first courage you play during your turn has 2 power. So it just adds some nice stuff for you. Now, the Decepticon bosses will be mixed into the deck. Not all of them, but they're all going to end up in the deck, and you're going to have to face, 3 of them will end up in each game that you're going to play. You have to defeat all of them. So Soundwave, Astral Train, Starscream, Blitzwing, Megatron, and Devastator. Then lastly, we got over here the Decepticon schemes. So things like the Hostage Crisis, Space Belt to Cybertron, Magnetized Core, All-Out Assaults, and Divided Loyalties. So different schemes that you need to try to foil. Now for victory points, they come in the denominations of 10, 5, and 1. We've got these tracking markers that will either be for +1 energy, or on the reverse side, to help you keep track of your movement and the movement that you've spent. Here you've got just a reminder for the things that are ongoing, or they need to be done at the start of your turn. Then we've got 2 different size cubes for energon markers. We've got the small one, which represents 1, and the big one, which will represent 5. So there you have it. These are all of the components for the Transformers deck building game. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this sleeved up. So now we're going to go over a gameplay overview of Transformers, the deck building game. So don't expect to get all the rules. This is really just to give you a taste as to what you'll be doing in the game. Every player starts with a 10-card starting deck. They have their character in alt mode, and they also start with 2 energon cubes. So I'm just going to put those on the board for right now. I'll finish shuffling the deck right now, and I'm going to draw 5 cards. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this is actually a pretty awful starting hand, but it'll let me showcase what I need to showcase. Now, on your first turn in the Matrix, you can place your character anywhere. And what you're going to do is you're going to spend movement points to move around the Matrix, as well as reveal cards. Now, you're going to play cards from your hand, and you'll be able to then trigger the card text. So, for example, here we've got the card Patrol, which says you may flip a card up that is adjacent to you. So, in case I'll play Patrol, I'll flip a card up. We'll see what we got here. So, we have Teletran 1. It's a technology card. And it says, peek at a face-down card of the Matrix. Pretty cool, but it costs 4. Unfortunately, I only have 2 courage, which gives me a maximum power of 2. But I do gain 1 extra movement from Patrol. So we can take a look at more stuff. Now, my decisions here are not going to be strategic. I'm really just going to be showcasing what I can do in the most efficient fashion. So I've got 1 movement. I'll spend that movement to reveal the card that I'm standing on. And we've got energy swords, which I'd have to spend 4 to buy. Can't do that. Now I do have 2 more movement. So I'll move 1, 2 through the Matrix. And I can't reveal anything, but I do have more cards. So for example, reserves will give me an energon and 1 more movement. So with that, I'll reveal this card here, which is one of the relics, the Matrix of Leadership. I'll take the energon. I also have Fix, which is the starter card, which will give me another movement. I'll go ahead and move down here. Then I have my 2 courage, which I can spend. Now, the only thing I can really spend it on is one of the transform and rollouts, which are always available. So this will go in my pile of cards. When I acquire it, it will go into my discard pile. Now, as I am Ratchet, I do have a special ability. I may transform at any time, and if I'm battling in this alternate mode, I do have -1 power. So not really a great situation, but for the moment, I like where I'm at. I'm not going to transform, so I'll draw 5 cards. It will then be another player's turn, but because I'm just going over the overview of the gameplay, I'm not going to have another player play the game. I'm just going to continue on. So just pretend someone else played. Well, you know what? I've got Iron-Eyed. Iron-Eyed moved here. Sorry, I was actually using Iron-Eyed standee. That was a mistake. There's Ratchet. Here's Iron-Eyed. He moved around the board. Let's say he moved here. Flip this card, which is a sight. Had 8 energon on it, because that's what the site says to do, and he bought a transform and roll out. So that would have been his turn. So we'll go back to Ratchet's second turn. Now I've got a lot more firepower, but not a lot of movement and versatility. So being in my alternate form is very important. So I will reveal the card, spending the 1 movement. So here I get Scrapper. And Scrapper is power 4. And I then must draw an encounter card and see what happens. I am ambushed. So I must destroy the top card of your deck. Now, I do not have a deck because I've not had the shuffle. So this ambush actually is rendered ineffective. Meaning, I can then take a look at my hand and I will spend 4 courage, because it has 4 power, to then defeat Scrapper. He then goes into my vault, and I gain what's at the bottom. So I gain 1 victory point, and I get to destroy 1 starter I control. Cards that I played during my turn are cards that I control, so I can just go ahead and destroy one of the cards that I already played. Now, I still have this firepower card, and let's say for a moment there was a card that I could acquire that was a cost 2, that was 1 card away, so we'll pretend that Jazz was actually a 2-cost card. Range 1, power 2, I could use that to acquire that card if I so choose. In case of regular gameplay, I'd be able to use this to acquire a transform and roll out. Now, one thing we're going to do right now, we're just going to flip over the cards. We should potentially have a Decepticon boss in here. If we don't, I'll grab one out of the deck. But we found Vortex, we found other stuff, so we don't have a Decepticon boss out, probably just because of the way I shuffled everything. He's right here, so he would have been showing up very shortly. So we'll put Astral Train right here, because I just want to show you what the difference is with you're fighting a boss. Now, in this case, you reveal the boss, you're going to have a reveal effect, you're going to have an ambush. You'll notice the boss reveal ambush hits all adversaries. There's also an ongoing effect. So you'll want to mark this, that there's an ongoing effect of stuff that will happen. And then if you want to defeat Astral Train, you're going to have to play power of 6 to do it. Now, when you actually do battle a boss, you will shuffle up the entire encounter deck. You'll reveal the top card, but you're going to go with the boss confrontation. So it says attack, destroy 1 robot you control. If you control none, you'd gain 2 damage. So if you're not playing any robots, you would take damage. Now, the interesting thing about damage is that it can make you lose in the cooperative game. In the competitive game, it is the amount of assists that players are allowed to play. So a card that can be played to assist, for example, Iron-Eye's 1 space away. He could play Firepower because it got range 1 to help me out. With regards to defeating Astral Train, if I'm damaged, I then have to accept his help. I have no choice. So that's the differences with regards to the boss. So that in order to defeat him, I'd have to have 6 power worth of cards. So if you got some robots, well, if I had a robot because of the ambush, I'd have to essentially destroy them if I played them. And that sucks because cards are destroyed or removed from the game. If not, just hopefully I've got enough. And because I took damage, especially if at this point in the game, if I hadn't bought a robot, I would take in 2 damage. That means Iron-Eyed could for sure assist me in the competitive game. Now, in the cooperative game, he's going to want to assist me anyway, because you want to defeat these bosses as fast as possible. That's how you win the game, and you want to stop their ongoing effects. So I just really want to give you an idea as to how things work in the game. You do have the Energon cubes. You can trigger your Energon abilities. Energon abilities, you can see some are here on your bot card. Other ones are part of the different cards. So for example, when it comes to courages, when you play them, you can spend 1 Energon to play the top card of your deck, especially if you don't have enough power. So let's say you only had like 5 power, but you figured you got something in your deck. Well, pay an Energon, you can probably get there, especially if you got an ally in range to help you out. So there you have it. We've gone through just the basics of the game rather quickly, so you have an idea as to what you're doing. And keep it right here, as Julie and I will be coming back at you with a review of Transformers, the deck building game. So Julie, we've now played the Transformers deck building game. We played a few different modes, and this is not your favorite IP, but I'm eager to hear your thoughts. What are we going to start discussing?
Well, yeah, so it's not my favorite IP, but I think it does translate well. I think that it's well translated, I guess I could say. It represents the Transformers well.
Yeah, you can do a lot of...
Yes, I was privy to a lot of that during our plays.
I used to do those all the time when I was playing with the toys, so hard to resist.
So it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody listening that I much preferred the cooperative mode to the competitive. This is not the worst competitive I've ever played by far, but I have to say though that it dragged on a lot longer at 2 players than I would have liked.
Yeah, and we'll talk a lot more about the specific gameplay aspects that we liked when we talk about the cooperative game. But I agree with Julie. This definitely felt like a drag. We were about a half hour in, and I was kind of feeling like, okay, when is this going to pick up? Now, in the competitive game, when you get damage, it does mean that other players can assist you, which is supposed to, keep things even. But it feels like that mechanic, especially when damage is racking up, can be a lot more useful in terms of, forcing players to assist or forcing people to accept help to take out things like Decepticon bosses. We just took out Megatron to keep things going faster earlier on in the game. Also at higher player counts, some of the bosses that are only like 6, the first level 1 boss, it's 6 to defeat them. If you have 3 or 4 players, if you're getting 4 assists, it doesn't take much in your base hand in order to be able to defeat them.
Yeah, and it took a little longer for us because at least, and this is one of the issues, I guess, would be it depends on what cards come up. Right. So for me, this game, things weren't really going my way. The cards that were coming up in my hand versus what was available in the Matrix just wasn't really conducive to trying to get out of the gate quickly. You were a little bit luckier with that, and it led for you to win. I mean, I thought I was getting ahead. I was beating a lot of Decepticons, but I really wasn't gaining cards that helped me later on in the game.
Yeah, I did the opposite. I avoided the Decepticons and tried to build my deck so I'd be able to have the power to take out some of the bosses.
I just didn't have that option with the cards that were coming up for me. I had mainly Decepticons around me, or the cards that I could have bought were way too expensive. I didn't have enough power.
No, I definitely found a lot more cards a little earlier on than you did. And that's one of the things that could be definitely mitigated by higher player counts in the competitive version of the game, because you just have more players moving through a larger matrix. And oftentimes we were flipping cards, but we weren't necessarily interacting with them.
So talking about the Decepticons, since we're on that point, I felt like they were a little bit harder in the competitive mode because there's less of a desire to help, right? Like, yes, you can assist, but you can assist with 1 card. And
you don't want to use your best card either because you want that for your turn too.
It's different from the cooperative mode. I felt like we got through it a lot more because we were working together. Yes, we're good at cooperative games. We play them more often. I really felt like cooperative was more our style. It flowed better. It moved better. I felt that the competitive mode at 2 players, or this friendly competitive mode at 2 players, wasn't my cup of tea. Cooperatively, I like. Sorry,
I just want to interject with my thoughts on the competitive mode, and then we'll move on to the cooperative mode. I think Julie summed it up very well. I don't really have much more to add with regards to the competitive mode. I liked it. It was okay, but it wasn't my favorite. It does feel like this mode was really designed to be playing Autobots versus Decepticons, but they did adapt a way for it to be played as Autobots versus Autobots. So it works. It's nice to have in the box, but it's definitely not something that I'm going to play again at 2 players. I think both of us are really agreed that at the 2-player count, this mode is just something that we'll avoid. We'll grab Rising Darkness, we'll mix some stuff in, and we'll try out the competitive mode, and then we'll see if it's something that we actually want to get back to the table in that format.
From the cooperative mode, I mean, it was fun. We worked together. I started talking about the components. I like the
standees.
Yeah, the standees are okay. I like the pink. The pink, what are they called? Energon?
Yeah, the Energon cubes.
The Energon cubes. Those are nice. I liked, we can't really see the quality of the cards. You sleeve them right away because, well, this is a Transformers game, so.
And it's a deck building game, meaning we're going to shuffle it a lot, so it got sleeved before we played it, but the card stock is very good.
These tokens for movement were required because to really track the movement properly, you really do need them, so it's good to have them. And when it came to the cards and the way things worked on the cooperative mode, I just felt it flowed well and it was fun. We didn't talk about the ambush attack. I mean, that's a different mechanic than what we've done before.
Very different. And this is also the first deck builder where you really have a standee that we've played that you're moving around the cards, where the cards are the board. We've played Clank, we've played plenty of deck builders where the board and the cards are separate and you're moving on the board and then drawing cards. But I really liked this element. I like moving around. I like having to land on the card, spend a movement to then reveal the card, see who they are. It's something that was different, and I like that. This deck builder has interesting mechanics. The sites being places that you can go in order to gain energon, gain special effects, and just have them be things that are different that stay in place for the entire game is pretty cool. I like the allies as well. You get an ally, it goes immediately into play, and that gives you a neat ongoing effect. Also, I like the fact that in the cooperative game, if someone takes 5 damage, you do lose. Now, I did take a quick peek at Rising Darkness. That is also the terms of losing when you're playing a team battle or like 1v1. If a player does get 5 damage, then they will lose the game.
Yeah, so I mean, it was an interesting fact that, when you reveal a Decepticon, that you would have, an ambush.
Yeah, draw a card from the encounter deck. One side's the ambush. The other side's for the confrontation, which is where I think you're going with that.
And the other thing that that was interesting about this that made sense was also the range that it allowed you to buy and attack at a distance, which was helpful to avoid the ambush.
Exactly. And you do get some cards that will let you reveal other cards when you don't have to go into the space. So if you do happen to reveal a Decepticon, well, guess what? You can avoid the ambush. Now, you will not be able to avoid the confrontation whether you're attacking at ranged or you're on the same spot as the Decepticon boss. You do have to go through the confrontation, which can be very nasty. And I like the fact that this encounter deck, which I'll draw the whole deck here except for that one card, is fairly small. When you do the confrontation, the fact that it gets all shuffled back up to randomize it, meaning you can't plan ahead, I like that. Typically, I don't like random elements, but it does mean that, if lots of ambushes are out, it could be fairly easy to be like, oh, this guy's going to be really easy to beat. This confrontation card is not going to affect anything in my end. So the fact that it re-randomizes everything, I thought was a well done
thing. So that the really bad card, which adds +5 energy to the villain, came back I don't know how many times in the same game.
Yeah, we dealt with that a lot. And I like the elements that you have in your deck already to thin the deck out, like having the fixed card, regularly being able to get rid of the starters, battling the Decepticons, or probably if they're playing Rising Darkness, the Autobots, and getting opportunities to thin your deck really lets you build some cool, powerful decks. Now, that can go against you because if you get a boss like Megatron, who comes out, who was the last boss that we faced, they'll just be destroying some of your cards with ongoing effects. So those ongoing effects from Decepticon schemes and bosses are really what push that semi-cooperative nature in the competitive mode, but also really push you to work together as quickly as possible in the cooperative mode when you're trying to get those off the board so that you can win the game. Because if you don't defeat all the bosses, you will lose. If you can't put any more cards into the matrix, you will then lose. Now, for the competitive game, you don't have to worry about losing. It's just going to end when all bosses are defeated, or you can't put any more cards into the matrix. And then you're going to be comparing victory points, which in the cooperative game, this would all have been turned into energon, letting you do more stuff. So that's one of the things that contributes to what you were discussing with the flow of the game. Like, you can just do a lot more.
Yep.
So I think that really summarizes our thoughts on the game. I think just to give like a brief tagline for it, I think this is a unique deck builder where you're moving around a grid, acquiring cards, and that's something that if you don't have in your collection, you probably want to add it.
So I'm ready to give it a score.
I'm ready to give it a score as well. I thought this was going to actually be ending up closer to, lower than the G.I. Joe game. Now I think I'm maybe on par or close to it. We really enjoyed the G.I. Joe deck building game more than I thought. And I'm going to give this a 7.5. I think the game flows very well cooperatively. I really like the experience. I like having both modes because it adds variety. G.I. Joe works great cooperatively, and Power Rangers is only competitive, and I wish that had a cooperative mode as well. So having both, I think this is the most well-rounded deck builder that Renegade's put out that we've played. We will be playing the My Little Pony game in the near future. So 7.5, good game. Probably would have gone higher, but I really feel that it is missing something in that competitive mode.
So for me, it's a 7. It gets a 7 because it has both modes. The IP obviously doesn't push it up for me because it doesn't, I'm not really a huge fan, but it doesn't detract from it either. I like the cooperative. I can see us playing again. I don't see us playing the competitive mode at 2 players. Probably try it at a higher player count just to see what we think. But for me, it's a strong 7.
Yeah, I really think that the Decepticon mode, and just to peel it back a little bit, when you won't having those assists, when you're going to have like a variety of cards mixed in, it's probably going to flow better. And the fact that, someone can lose the game means there's going to be just a little bit extra tension that made the game really drag in the competitive. I know we're kind of bashing on it a lot, so we'll stop. But we do really like the game. So on that note, we're going to remind you to
like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified when we have new content for you.
And take a look down below in the video description. You'll find links to all of our social media feeds: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you'd like to see some pictures of Julie and I playing the Transformers deck building game, there are plenty on those feeds. Also, if you're looking to pick up any copies of Renegade Games deck building games, make sure you click the link to multizone.ca that we got there. They're a great Canadian game store. You'll get 10% off your next purchase. They got a whole ton of stuff, and it's a great way to support the channel, as a portion of that purchase will be returned to us. And then popping up in front of us are going to be links to some of our previously released videos. In front of me will be our most recent release. When it's available, we'll take you to our review of the Rising Darkness, the Decepticon game. Until then, I'll take you to G.I. Joe. And on that note, we are now going to
grab our drink,
grab our fellow Autobot, and we will remind you to keep playing games.